Welcome back. Josh Taylor, Paul Zeise. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Taking your phone calls, 412-575-2600 on the Bordas and Bordas hotline. And also, we're taking your tweets at Josh Taylor HD. Paul, you and I were just talking about this during the break. One of the things we were discussing as far as trade discussion is concerned, Josh Harrison was one of those names that's been bandied about. And you and I were just discussing this. If you're looking at a possible return for Josh Harrison, how much is there to expect, considering the fact that he's not performing as well and he has one of the larger salaries on the team, taking a bigger chunk out of the percentage of the payroll?
He's making a lot of money,
and
he's not playing well. Who's taking that contract for the way he's playing, what you're getting in return? It doesn't make sense. I don't see anyone taking him. I know he's the team mascot, but I don't see anyone taking Sean Rodriguez off your hands for any, you know what I mean, any reason. You know, the guys that we keep hearing about that are going to get traded are guys that a lot of people, I don't know who wants them.
Now, if I'm looking at a Josh Harrison to get traded, maybe I'm looking after July 31st. Maybe he passes through waivers, and then maybe you try something there.
I could see that.
That might be something that makes more sense to me. Same thing with the Sean Rodriguez, maybe. He passes through waivers, maybe you send him to a team that might need a veteran.
Who's willing to give you absolutely almost nothing.
Pretty much.
But if you want to get their money off the books, that's what you're going to have to do.
That's probably the way to do it.
Or, you know, you package him with Vasquez.
Whew. That might make a lot of people unhappy.
But you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna do it, to me, you want to trade Vasquez. Okay, good. You want Vasquez? Guess what?
You got to take Harrison.
You got to take this guy too.
That might be something that, and honestly, that's something that would make a lot of people unhappy. But if you're going to get a decent return, that might be the way you do it.
Yeah.
That might be the only plausible way.
That might be the way you get him off your books.
And this is something that I have to remind people, because they always say, well, how come they just keep getting all these terrible guys in return? There's a difference between trading a guy with a high trade value and trading a guy with a low trade value. And one of the mistakes Neil Huntington has made quite frequently in the last couple of years, he's traded guys at low trade value. Francisco Liriano, low trade value. Neil Walker, low trade value. Andrew McCutchen, low trade value. If you're going to trade them to get a decent return, trade them when the value is higher and teams are willing to give you more, because that guy obviously.
There's another guy that people think are going to, someone's going to trade them for is Francisco Cervelli, who's had he's now in the concussion protocol, I think, for the second time or whatever. You know what I mean?
I'm wondering what kind of market there is.
He's had injuries, and he's had injuries, and he makes a lot of money.
Is there an American League team out there that needs a bat that might be willing to put him in the offense, maybe get him some reps at first, or maybe DH him once or twice a week just to get his bat in the lineup? That might be the only viable trade partner you have, because I don't know if a National League team wants him as far as trying to get him
with all of his injury issues.
Right. It just does. It seems like a bigger risk than it does a reward.
Not at $11 million or whatever he makes a year.
That
That's
too.
a lot of money.
So it's another Josh Harrison situation where, are you willing to take on this risk for what you're paying for the contract? Is it really worth that? And for another team, my guess is probably no. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Tony in the Hill District. Shout out to the Hill. Tony, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hello, Josh. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I just want to ask you guys a question. Okay, I had called the other night, and I had asked Rich. I had told him that I didn't think that any team in NFL would pay Le'Veon Bell $70 million for 5 years. Okay, and he said he thinks at least the Browns or Baltimore would. But my thing of it is, say they give him $70 million, the Browns pick him up next year and give him $70 million for 5 years, and you still don't go to the playoffs. Don't you think that would be a waste of $70 million?
Depends on who you ask, but thank you for the call. I'm of the firm belief, and Paul, I'll let you weigh in on this too. If you're not going to pay a guy that's good enough, and we've seen that Le'Veon Bell's good enough, but if you're not going to pay him, someone else will. Never underestimate another team's ability to overpay for a guy, because it's going to happen. To answer your question, does it really help the other team? It depends on what else is around him, because him going to a Cleveland, that's probably not as good of a move for him right now.
Yeah, but Cleveland has a ton of money to pay him. That's the thing.
So it's going to have to be a team that has cap space, and maybe the Colts might have.
So do the Jets. So do the Colts. So do the Raiders. There's going to be teams that have a lot of cap space, and they might say, hey, he's one of the best players in the NFL. We're going to put him on our team, and it changes our team immediately.
You see the Raiders. What about the Raiders?
Yeah, I'm just saying there's a possibility, and he's the kind of running back. He's the kind of running back John Gruden loves in his offense. He's the kind of guy that the Raiders go out and get, to me, the Raiders, the Colts, the Jets. I know he said, "Oh, I'll never play for the Jets." If they pay him $17 million a year, he'll play for the Jets.
I mean, somebody's going to have
and the Browns. Somebody's going to pay him.
Yeah.
Somebody is going to pay him. So
now we're also getting into, if you want to really get into the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty of it, there's also the guaranteed money versus the total money, because we could be talking about 70 million of it, and maybe only 40 million of it's guaranteed. Maybe some of it's backloaded. So we could be talking about the distribution itself, not necessarily the total amount, but maybe the distribution of it. Because maybe a team that doesn't have as much cap space, maybe they backload the end of the contract, so maybe they make it fit early and have more space for it down the rope. So that's something else, which, by the way, the Steelers are pretty good at doing, have been pretty good at doing themselves.
Right, but he made it pretty clear he wants money up front, period.
That's true.
He don't want anything backloaded. He don't want to hear about that. In fact, that's what his agent said. He said basically the Steelers are really good at that, but guess what? We're not interested in that.
Or you can find the right team that can front load it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the point.
Totally reverse the entire deal.
That's what I mean.
It
the Browns can give him a lot of money up front. I think the Raiders can next year, too. They've got some money coming off the books. The Jets are going to have like $110 million to give them if they want, So
Jets need a running back.
Yeah, there's going to be some teams that have the money to do it.
All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Let's go to Matthew in Uniontown. Matthew, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for calling in.
Hey, I read an article where Big Dan McCullers, nose tackle for the Steelers, said he's going to come into camp in shape. He's going to have the best year he ever had. You put any stock in that?
He's going to have to prove a lot, and thank you for the call, because let's break it down and just in terms of the names on paper. You're talking about Cam Hayward, you're talking about Stephon Tuitt, you're talking about Javon Hargrave. Then you're talking about Tyson Alualu, and there's another defensive lineman right now. The name escapes me right now. But there are guys that he has to try to jump ahead of. L.T. Walton is another name. Then they just drafted Joshua Frazier. So that's 6 names on paper that on Paul that he's going to have to try to jump past in order to catch somebody's attention and be in position to have the best year of his career. So, Paul, I don't know how you feel about this, but if I'm looking at the names on the depth chart now, if that's what he's expecting, I mean, it's great to have that motivation, but the reality of it is he's going to have a lot of names that he's going to have to leapfrog past in order to make that kind of
let's get to the start of the season and
right.
have you on the depth chart in a place where you're going to be able to get a lot of playing time before we start making declarations about what your season's going to be.
And my next question would be, why did it take until now?
Yeah.
It took so long. It's been, 3-4 years?
Yeah, exactly. But that happens a lot. You see that. That happens a lot. Guys that, they start to realize they're running out of time, and all of a sudden, they have a career year. Actually, the thought of what the Steelers are, they're hoping that the same thing happens with Bud Dupree.
Now, that's a guy who's going to have to do it.
Yeah, he's in
that position.
And here's the thing. I'm not buying this whole, we're going to get him jump-started by switching sides. To me, I've never heard one single instance where that has actually worked to get somebody jump-started.
The thing that cracks me up about that is switching Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt. I think it probably benefits T.J. Watt more than it benefits Bud Dupree, because T.J. Watt goes back to his natural position that he played at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That probably benefits him more than it does Dupree. That's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but their point is, what they're trying, that to me is the kind of move you make when you're really desperate. I mean, seriously. And I don't think Dupree has been a complete bust by any stretch, but he hasn't been nearly as good as they need him to be. And the thing about it is, you move him from one side to the other just because you're trying anything. You're trying something. You're hoping that something gets him going.
And another thing I'll point out before we go to break here is that by moving him to the other side, traditionally speaking, the left side of the quarterback, usually there's better pass blockers over there. Usually that's kind of how they structure it. So I don't know if that helps him as much as it maybe hurts him.
This idea that he's coming from the blind side now and he's not going to miss.
There was a book written about protecting the blind side. Michael Lewis wrote a pretty good book about it. They made it into a movie. So I'm wondering if that's really a good plan right now. But I guess we'll have to find out. We will take a break. We'll take more phone calls and tweets when we come back. Stick around.